Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katarina. I thought I will show my face in this video for a change. And the topic of this video is masculine card ideas. I have for you 50 plus ideas. I actually shortened it down from 100. Not sure if this is a good idea, but I always hear people saying masculine cards are difficult to make. For me, they are definitely more challenging, at least compared to cards for women. You can always make a card with a flower, which is something I really enjoy making. Not to say you cannot give a man a card with a flower, but I take it as an opportunity to create something different. And last year, as I was transferring my blog posts from my old website to the new one, I realized that I tagged a lot of cards as masculine. Many of them were more like gender neutral, but they still count as masculine cards. And this gave me idea for this video. I just didn't know how to go about it. I decided to just show you the photos of the cards and talk about it a little bit. I will add a number next to each card, and you can go to the description of this video where you will find a link next to the number to the original video how I made the card. There might be some that only have a blog post, but most of them have video. And of course, you can go to my website, and in the corresponding blog post for this video, you will find the links as well. Before we get into the cards, I want to talk about colors. When I search on Google or Pinterest for masculine card ideas, most of the time the results give me cards that are very dark and gloomy. I don't necessarily dislike these cards, I definitely make few of them myself, but at one point I wanted to add more color. What happened to more vibrant colors? All I want to say, do not get restricted by color. If you want to use more vibrant colors, go for it. There are no rules that you have to use these specific colors for masculine cards. A huge tip: if you are truly struggling with coming up with masculine card ideas, what I started doing, especially for Father's Day, for my dad, for my stepdad, for my father-in-law, I created the same card 3 times. For birthdays, I have one idea, and if I don't come up with something new, I reuse that idea. Alright, let's get into the cards. My cards would generally fall into 3 categories. I'm going to start with category where I use stamps, dies, and other what I call typical card making products that create the focal point. I guess this is what most of you are using. The only issue might be that most of these products might no longer be available, but in my opinion, this should not be a problem. I will be talking mostly about the idea, not the products. You should be able to replace what I'm using with something different. However, when I'm shopping, if I would describe the stamp sets I'm looking for, the words would be cute, but not too cute, fun and cool. Of course, this is all in the eye of a beholder, but this is what I'm going for. And before we move to Sweden, there is a brand that I discovered. Sadly, they are not available here, but I would say 90% of their stamp sets would fall into this category. The brand is called Gerda Steiner Designs. I thought they were German, but as far as I know, they are based in the US. If they were available here in Sweden, I would have no problems with masculine cards. Sadly, I only have 3 stamp sets from them, and one of them is this one with guinea pigs. My husband likes guinea pigs, he had guinea pigs as a child, but I did give these cards to other men as well. Especially for my husband, I am getting a lot of mileage from this stamp set. For videos, I made these 4 cards, but privately I made even more, and I'm not done with it yet. My favorite is this one. I think it's the most elaborate one. The stamp set had these tiny stamps with images of salad, and what I did here, I created a wreath. Many stamp sets have these tiny stamps, and creating a wreath is a great idea. In addition, I used distress inks to add a little bit of color for the background, and over it I used a stencil and texture paste. One thing these cards and other cards in this category have in common is focal point, background, and a greeting. I think this is pretty much typical when you're using stamps. That's why I said you can use different products if you don't have this particular one. Another great representation of this formula are these cards, all in one video. I had a stamp set with bears that I wanted to use. The stamp set is from My Favorite Things. This is another brand that made a great stamp set for masculine cats. I just learned they went out of business. So sad. I was wondering that I did not see anything new from them. This is an explanation. But the idea for these cards are the backgrounds. I created 6 cards with 6 different backgrounds. The focal point is completely up to you. Talking about backgrounds, one of my favorite backgrounds that I ever created was for this cat. I had a stamp set with an octopus coming out of the sea. The stamp set is from Avery L, another brand that went out of business. This is particularly sad for me because this was one of my favorite brands, although I could not get them in Sweden. This particular Galaxy Aurora type of a sky is very simple. I used only one color where the middle is kind of lighter. I usually struggle with multicolors, but this one is very simple. To show you that you can use my ideas for these cards using different products, here are 2 examples where I did just that. I used the stamp set with the bears, and on the right I recreated the galaxy background using different color, and on the left I recreated the background that I used for the guinea pig. Again, I used different color. Another favorites of mine are these cards. Here I created a moon, the other one can be Mars, using distress inks. All I did here, I die cut a circle. For the other one, I created a mask. And using the distress inks, I did the lifting technique to create the craters. This is very easy to create. I came up with it by accident. Highly recommend if you have distress inks. This is definitely perfect for masculine cats. I only wish I did not make thank you cards, because I don't really need them. The next card is this one with a cute bear holding a cupcake. The video is just a short, but I really like this card. The bear is actually a digital stamp that I printed out. It's from Gerda Steiner Designs. I got it for free, and as of this moment, it's still be free on their website. Actually, Gerda Steiner Designs had a lot of digital stamps to purchase on their website. I cannot find it anymore, not sure what happened, but despite this card being purple or lilac, I did give it to a guy. Since we are on the topic of digital stamps, another example where I use digital stamps are these cards with monster leaves. I got them for free on the website freepik.com. I printed out the different leaves in different sizes and I colored it with watercolor markers. What I actually like about digital stamps is that A, they are cheaper, and also you can print them out in different sizes. So if you don't want to make the same card multiple times, you can make different versions of the same card. Technically, you can do that with stamped images as well, except you don't have the option of resizing. Just to show you a few more examples in this category, I'm gonna speed it up and quickly show you the cards. Here is a bunny with a balloon. Sadly, the stamp set is from Avery L, that means no longer available, but you can recreate this design with other products. For example, here is a card from my very first blog. I had a stamp set with robots, die set with balloons. I picked one of the robots, die cut the balloon using pattern paper, and I made the robot to hold the balloon. If you have balloon dies, you can create, for example, something like this. I had a bike stamp, I created clouds in the background. I think it's a fun card idea. This is also from my old blog. I did not make videos then, so I will only link it to the blog. Another card idea with balloons, if you have dies or stencils, because I use the dies to create a stencil, you can make a card like this. I think balloons are great for cards for men. And so are cards with candles. I had a stamp set with just one candle, stamped it in a row, you could just use one. And there are so many options. You can get stamps, dies, stencils, or you can make the card I made recently where I painted the candles with watercolors. Great idea for masculine cards are geometric patterns. If you have stamps, dies, stencils with different geometric shapes, these are perfect to give to a man. I don't have that many of these cards, but Laura Basson has a lot of them. I would recommend checking her out. And the last card in this category is this card with a lighthouse. This is just an honorable mention because the stamp set is from Avery L, meaning no longer available, but I really like it. If you have something similar, give it a try. All I did here is a simple coloring, and around the place where the light is, I created a shaker element. Since a lot, if not most, of my card examples in this category are with old products that are no longer available, if you have a Pinterest account, I have a board that is dedicated to masculine cards. I will put there more cards that are with recent products so you can check it out. The link will be in the description. But let's move on to the next category, which is creating cards from scratch. Don't worry, I don't make anything too difficult. I mainly started making these cards to save money. I'm not really an artist. If anything, I'm like advanced beginner. I mainly use watercolors, but there are some cards where I use acrylic paints. And the simplest cards that you can create are cards with landscapes. The easiest one is probably this one where I created a sky, just like a gradient, and I painted silhouette of mountains. Or instead of mountains, you can paint trees like I did here. Actually, this card was one of the first cards that I painted. And if you want to make it easier on yourself, I'm pretty sure you can get stamps or stencils with silhouettes of mountains or trees. The great thing about landscape cards is that they are versatile. You can change a little thing and make completely different card. For example, like on this card, I painted that galaxy aurora sky and painted a few trees. Or if you don't feel like painting with watercolors, you could create these backgrounds using distress inks or any blendable inks. To level it up a little bit, you could paint the mountains and trees together using different colors. For example, here I painted a sunset sky and multiple mountains. They're going from back to front, from lightest to darkest. And at the bottom, I painted a few trees. Another example would be this card, really colorful, and here I did not add any trees. Another great example for masculine cards are cards with trees. More specifically, evergreen trees, because other trees I'm not really good at. The first cards I have for you are these ones. It's a row of trees. It's for Christmas, but I made them also for birthday cards. It's painted by adding clean water at the bottom, and as you're painting the trees, when the color hits the water, it spreads out and it's pretty cool. A few more ideas with cards with evergreen trees. Here are two examples that are great for masculine cards. The technique is pretty much the same as the previous one. And if you don't want to make a card with evergreen trees, you can create something like this, a misty forest. It's pretty much painting lines in different shades of the same color. Still on the topic of landscapes, but a little bit more summery, you could paint something like this: sky, sea, beach, and a cactus. Actually, this card I painted with acrylic paints, but you can do that also with watercolors or I guess distress inks, at least the background. Another cactus idea is this one with sunset sky and cacti silhouettes. The sky I painted with watercolors, but the cactuses I drew with alcohol markers. It's just easier. To move away from landscapes, you could create cards like these, where I used actual real leaves and I stamped the leaves to create a pattern. For the stamping, I used acrylic paints or gouache, and for the backgrounds, I used either acrylic paints or watercolors. Both of these examples were made for autumnal cards, so you can definitely change up the colors. And since we are on the topic of leaves, leaves are great for masculine cards. Well, they are great for both masculine and feminine cards, but since this is a video about masculine cards, we are going with masculine cards. And here are three examples. You can either create a background with leaves or more like a frame with leaves. You can create a simple branch with leaves, or you can create a wreath. All simple ideas. And if you are learning watercoloring, they are great for practicing brush strokes. If you would like to create something else than landscapes, trees and leaves, here are a few examples. The first one are these cards with watermelon slices. This is another example of my first cards that I ever created from scratch, and they are very simple to make. Another example are cards with ice lollies. You could either create one big ice lolly or a background filled with ice lollies. Another great idea is to create a card with a palm, although that belongs to the tree category. Oh well. Here I actually used a mixture of watercolors and watercolor markers because it was much easier to do. And if you would like to have a much simpler version of a palm, here I created a silhouette of palm and the background I made using distress inks. Another great idea for a masculine card is a card with a kite. Here I created a tall card and I painted the kite flying in the sky. If you liked the card idea with the melons, why not to create a card with a background filled with cherries? This is again very easy to create. Another great card idea with fruit is this card with a background with orange slices. Here I actually used very cheap watercolors. And since we are on the topic creating a background with simple images, recently I made this card with a background filled with bees. This is made with acrylic paints. I stamped yellow circles and with alcohol markers I painted in the stripes. There are way more cards I could show you that I created from scratch, but I don't want to overwhelm you, so I'm gonna stop here and move on to the last category. It's nothing extraordinary. I wasn't even sure if I should include it here because it's so obvious. And the category is background and a greeting. If you are truly stuck and really don't know what to create, the best way to go is to create a simple background, add a greeting, and you're done. Technically, a few of the last cards would fit perfectly into this category, but I have a few more, and because they are very simple, I'm gonna get through this very quickly. One of my favorite backgrounds to create is using watercolors. You can create simple one color gradient. Technically, like I did the one with the mountains, you just don't paint the mountains and add a big greeting. Or like here, I created a multicolor background. You could also create something like the galaxy backgrounds. There is so many options. Of course, backgrounds with distress inks or other blendable inks are great options for masculine cards. Here I created a simple brown background, or you could create a sky. Yes, pink is also an option that you can include in masculine cards, or you can create a card like this with a night sky. I think all of these cards are just short, so if you would like that I create proper long form video, let me know in the comments. Still in the group of distress inks, with the distress inks or similar inks, you can create a way more. You could use a stencil and create interesting backgrounds. You could use embossing folders. This one was for autumnal cards. Here I created a background with the bokeh effect. On this card, I created circle stencils and blended the distress inks over it. And on these cards, I created the bokeh effect by stamping circles with distress inks and reactivating them with water. Another great example for masculine cards are cards with galaxy backgrounds. I know I already mentioned galaxy backgrounds, but I did not give you specific examples. Here is one that I created with distress inks. More specifically, I did the smooshing technique. That was pretty fun, but you can also blend the inks if you want. And of course, you can use watercolors to create galaxy backgrounds. Here I created one that is inside of a balloon. I'm usually not good at galaxies, but this was pretty good. If you don't want to use pink, you can use blues or greens. Another great background example is to use your stamps to create your own background. I already showed you one with the bears, but here is one from my old blog with balloons. I think balloons are great for masculine cards. And of course, background stamps, that's pretty obvious. Here, this one I created for Valentine's Day cards. Another great option for masculine cards are cards made using pattern paper. When I started, I used to make a lot of cards with pattern paper. Yes, you might end up with quite gloomy cards, but not always. And recently, actually that was 2 years ago, I made this card. I put multiple different pattern papers together and it does not really look that gloomy. And I really like it. However, if you would like to have really fun background idea for masculine cards or any other cards, here I did something called squeegee art. I used acrylic paints, squeegee, and created different backgrounds. It was a little bit messy, but really fun. I highly recommend. All right, I think I'm gonna stop here. I think this was enough card examples. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I lowered it from 100. This video definitely didn't want to be made, but I managed. So if you lasted till the end, thank you so much. Let me know which card was your favorite. I'm a little bit stuck with card ideas and I'm in a little creative slump. So if you have any video suggestions or any questions, just ask in the comments and I will see you in my next video.